fire cannot burn in midair. I mean, no matter how brilliant you are or like how much energy you bring to the table,
Yeah.
you absolutely need the right fuel to shine. So today we are exploring why realizing you simply cannot do it all alone might actually be your ultimate superpower.
Right, because it's a fundamental law of nature that we constantly try to ignore.
Hmm.
Without a base to sustain it, even the absolute brightest spark just vanishes into the cold.
Exactly. And hey, if you want to apply this kind of strategic thinking to your own life, you can download our app, YOW, right now in the Apple App Store, and definitely grab the book, The Mind Key to the I Ching on Amazon.
Highly recommend checking those out.
For sure. Because today we are doing a deep dive into an incredibly unique blueprint for how we attach ourselves to the world. We are unpacking a thousands of years old concept from the I Ching, specifically the hexagram known as Li, which translates to fire.
Yeah, and the mission for you listening today is really to help you figure out what kind of fuel you are currently burning in your life and, how to keep your fire going without accidentally burning your own house down. So fire over fire.
Yeah.
Let's dissect what this actually looks like when we apply it to modern careers, relationships, all of it.
I love that. So where do we even start with this?
Well, we should probably start with a visual of the Li hexagram itself, which is quite literally the symbol for fire layered right on top of another fire.
Okay, fire over fire.
Yeah. And the core nature of fire is that it has no shape of its own.
Right.
It is entirely dependent on what it is currently burning.
Oh, that makes sense. Like it takes the form of its fuel.
Exactly. A fire consuming, say, a pile of dry pine needles is erratic. It's sparking, it's super fast, and then it's just brief. But a fire burning a massive oak log is steady. It radiates deep heat for hours and hours.
Wow, yeah. And that instantly challenges a very deeply ingrained narrative for those of us in the West. I mean, we love to build monuments to the self-made lone
Oh,
wolf.
totally. We are obsessed with it.
Right. Like the tech founder in the garage who supposedly conquers the world purely through their own isolated sheer force of will.
The whole pulling yourself up by your bootstraps thing.
Yes. The billionaire who did it with zero help from society or anyone else.
Yeah, and look, that narrative makes for a fantastic movie script, but it fundamentally misunderstands how value is actually generated in the real world.
So this ancient philosophy basically argues the exact opposite of the lone wolf.
Completely the opposite.
Yeah.
True success, or, true illumination, requires what is called attachment to the right base.
Attachment.
Right. I mean, an entrepreneur is just a person pacing around a room with an idea until they actually attach themselves to a market.
That's a great way to put it.
Or like a brilliant piece of software, it is entirely useless without the hardware to run it on or a community of users to actually interact with it.
Oh, it's kind of like creating a killer mobile app. I mean, the code itself is the fire, right? But without a platform to distribute it, like the Apple App Store or a steady user base ready to download it, it's literally just lines of code sitting in the dark on a server somewhere. It desperately needs that foundation to cast any light.
That analogy maps perfectly. And to manage this dynamic, the I Ching provides 3 core mindsets for keeping your fire alive over the long term.
Okay, I'm taking notes. What's the first one?
So the first mindset is just radical acceptance of your own dependency.
Meaning, I have to admit I need help.
Basically, yeah.
Yep,
You have
yeah.
to accept the reality that you need a foundation. You cannot burn in a vacuum.
Right.
If a person refuses to attach to the practical, honestly, sometimes boring realities of life, like needing a steady income or a collaborative team or just physical infrastructure, their grand ideas will simply evaporate.
So you really have to admit you aren't some magical, self-sustaining, floating flame. You require fuel.
Exactly.
But assuming someone actually accepts that, the next logical problem is figuring out what kind of fuel to look for, right? Because not all fuel is good fuel.
And that is exactly what the second mindset answers. It advises choosing a gentle, stable base.
Okay, gentle and stable.
Yeah, and the specific metaphor used here is highly intentional. It advises, quote, raising a docile cow.
Okay, wait. A docile cow. I have to pause you there, because when we talk about high achievers and business leaders, literally nobody wants to be associated with a cow.
I know, it sounds ridiculous to modern ears.
Right. People want to be a majestic tiger or a wild stallion or shark on Wall Street. Why on earth a cow?
Well, think about the physics of fire again. It is already incredibly volatile. It is energetic, erratic, always shifting, always hungry.
True.
So if you take that inherently volatile energy and you attach it to a foundation that is equally volatile and aggressive like a tiger, you don't get sustained warmth. You get a massive explosion.
Oh, wow. you lose control immediately.
Exactly. A cow, on the other hand, is steady, slow, grounded, and totally predictable. It just chews the cud. It produces milk reliably every single day.
Okay, I see where this is going.
It represents a stable platform. You actively want a foundation that absorbs your erratic creative energy and slowly turns it into sustained output rather than a quick, dangerous flash.
So if I'm like an eccentric, super high-energy creative director, the absolute worst thing I can do is partner with another highly volatile visionary.
No, it would be a disaster.
Right, because I don't need another spark. I need the calm, spreadsheet-loving operations manager.
Exactly.
I need the docile cow to ground my fire and actually build the business so we don't just burn everything down.
Spot on. The synergy comes entirely from that contrast. You need gravity to balance the heat.
That is profound.
And that brings us to the third mindset, which is honestly perhaps the hardest one for modern professionals to swallow.
Oh boy, hit me.
You must remember that your brilliance is always borrowed light.
Oof, borrowed light. That is a direct hit to the ego. I mean, we all desperately want to believe the light radiates from our own inherent genius.
It is a really difficult pill to swallow, but it is structurally essential. No matter how bright your fire gets, you can never, ever forget that the platform, the market, or the team supporting you is the actual source of your longevity.
Right, because if you forget that.
The moment a leader begins to believe the light comes entirely from their own charisma or intelligence, they just stop tending to their foundation. They stop feeding the people who do the actual hard work.
And when the wood runs out, the fire dies, regardless of how brilliant the spark was in the beginning.
Exactly.
Man, that is so relevant. Let's transition into how this actually plays out in a timeline, though, because, a fire doesn't just instantly appear perfectly balanced and burning on a nice oak log. There's an ignition phase, like you have to start somewhere.
Right, and the philosophy actually breaks this life cycle down into distinct stages.
Okay.
So starting from the very beginning, the first stage, the ignition, is defined by a frantic, messy search for fuel.
Frantic and messy.
Yeah. Picture a spark, just barely catching on some dry grass.
Yeah.
The energy is incredibly high, but the movements are super clumsy.
Right.
The flame is darting in every possible direction, desperate to find something substantial to grab onto before it blows out.
I see this constantly with fresh college graduates entering the workforce or, first-time startup founders.
Oh, absolutely.
They are running around trying to network with literally everyone, stepping on toes, sending way too many overly eager emails, and just generally looking quite desperate for a win.
Yes.
But in the corporate world, we are always taught to fake it till you make it. We're told that showing desperation totally kills your personal brand. Does this concept suggest we should try to hide that clumsiness?
Actually, it suggests the exact opposite.
Really?
Yeah, it says that trying to fake perfect polish during your ignition phase is a form of arrogance. And arrogance is what gets you extinguished.
Wow.
The clumsiness is completely natural. It's fully expected. The key here isn't trying to appear perfect. It's entirely about your attitude.
So what should the attitude be?
As long as you maintain a sense of caution and reverence, meaning, you respect the environment you are entering, you respect the senior people whose help you desperately need, and you just remain humble, you will avoid disaster.
Okay, so the seasoned professionals in the room will tolerate your frantic, clumsy sparks, provided you don't act like you already own the forest.
Exactly. They will not only tolerate it, they will actually often help guide your little spark to a proper log. It's the arrogant beginner who gets smothered out.
That should honestly be a massive relief for anyone starting out right now. That initial flailing around is just the natural cost of entry.
Yep.
But obviously nobody wants to stay in the dry grass forever. Eventually you have to move past the flailing and establish a real career or a real business.
Which leads us directly into the second stage, which is the ideal state of having a solid foundation. This is referred to as the yellow fire.
Yellow fire. I'm assuming the color yellow has some specific philosophical weight here.
It definitely does. In a lot of traditional Eastern thought, yellow is the color of the earth, like the very center of the compass.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it represents total grounding, neutrality, and stability. So finding your yellow fire means your flames have finally wrapped around a steady, substantial log.
You've arrived.
Basically.
Yeah.
You found a role, maybe a life partner, or a business model that simply works. And the instruction for this stage is delightfully straightforward. Do your job well, Do not rock the boat unnecessarily, and just thrive in this stable environment without letting your ego demand constant drama.
Okay, I have to play devil's advocate here for a second.
For it.
Because we live in a culture that absolutely worships the hustle.
We really do.
We are constantly told to disrupt our industries, to, move fast and break things, to always be looking for the next pivot or the bigger paycheck. If someone finally finds a stable job or a reliable market and they just stay there quietly doing the work, isn't that considered settling?
I hear that all the time.
Aren't we supposed to be constantly trying to jump to a bigger piece of wood?
That tension between modern hype and actual sustainability is exactly what this wisdom addresses.
Okay.
Because it counters our modern obsession by pointing out that disruption requires a massive expenditure of energy.
That's true. It's exhausting.
Right. If you are constantly jumping from log to log, whether that's job hopping every 6 months or pivoting your startup every single quarter, you force yourself to spend most of your time reverting right back to that clumsy, frantic first stage.
Oh, wow. You're always in survival mode. You're constantly trying to just get a spark to catch again.
Exactly. You're burning all your oxygen just fighting for basic survival. But when you find a stable base and actually commit to it, you begin to earn what we could call the compound interest of stability.
The compound interest of stability. I like that.
You aren't wasting energy surviving anymore. You are taking a reliable resource and converting it into deep, steady, useful light. True mastery requires time on the log. It isn't settling. It is optimizing your energy for the long game.
But the compound interest of stability only lasts as long as the log does, right?
Well, yes. Eventually, whether it's a literal piece of wood, a massive corporate monopoly, or even a specific technological era, the fuel runs out. So what happens when the base starts to rot? That brings us to the third stage, the sunset.
The sunset.
The wood is turning to ash. The day is ending. This represents the totally inevitable decline of whatever base you attached yourself to. And the choice presented here is entirely about how you handle the psychological reality of decline.
There are two paths you can take here, right?
Yes. The first path is to just accept the natural cycle. The metaphor used here is singing while beating a clay pot.
Singing while beating a clay pot. That's very visual.
It is. It's an image of very simple, unpretentious acceptance. You acknowledge that the golden era of this particular venture is over, and you find a quiet, grounded joy in the legacy of what you built, without angrily demanding it last forever.
And if you refuse to beat the clay pot, what if you fight it?
The alternative is to panic. To complain bitterly like an old person completely terrified of the dark, refusing to accept that the sun sets on everything.
You see this constantly in business transitions. I mean, think about the legacy video rental companies when streaming first arrived.
Oh, perfect example.
Or traditional retail chains staring down massive e-commerce. Instead of gracefully pivoting while they still had capital, or honestly even just closing up shop with dignity and returning money to shareholders, the leadership totally panicked.
Yep. They dug their heels in.
They grew bitter. They complained that consumers were wrong or that the market was somehow unfair.
And when leaders panic and complain in the sunset phase, they don't just look wildly out of touch, they actively accelerate their own collapse.
Right.
They alienate the people around them, they burn through whatever remaining goodwill they had, and they ruin the legacy of the light they previously provided. The sun is going to set whether you scream at the horizon or not.
That is such a powerful visual. Okay, so those first three stages provide a really clear map for managing our internal fire and our immediate foundations. But there's an upper half to all this, right? What happens when the fire scales up? Like when a business goes public or an individual steps onto a massive external stage.
Right. Scaling up pushes us into the external fire, and it starts with an incredibly dangerous phase. It describes a sudden, aggressive outward flare-up.
Like someone literally throwing a bucket of gasoline on a backyard barbecue.
The mechanics are exactly the same. In this stage, the fire erupts outwardly into the world, but it has no solid base underneath it to actually sustain the sheer size of the flame.
So it's just pure aggressive heat.
Exactly. And because it lacks a sustainable fuel source, it burns wildly, consumes everything in its immediate path at a terrifying speed, and then it just dies.
It just vanishes.
The philosophy describes this energy as coming suddenly, burning fiercely, dying out, and being entirely discarded.
Honestly, this sounds like a prophecy of modern hustle culture and viral media.
Oh, 100%.
Like, think about those massive music festival disasters a few years ago, or those sketchy crypto pump and dump schemes,
Yes.
or even just a viral TikTok influencer who blows up overnight, starts acting horribly because their ego totally outpaces their actual talent, and then 6 months later, the algorithm completely abandons them and nobody remembers their name.
The real tragedy there is that the fire actually mistakes the explosion for success,
Oh, wow.
right? The ego sees these massive flames and thinks, I have made it. But an explosion is not a sustainable light source. It is an event of destruction.
It just uses up all the available oxygen in the room instantly.
Exactly. If you don't have that docile cow foundation, if you don't have a real product, actual skills, or genuine relationships, your viral moment will just reduce whatever limited resources you did have straight to ash. You are literally consumed by your own hype.
So let's say someone is listening to this right now, and they realize they are currently in the middle of a gasoline fire. They are a leader or an entrepreneur, and they recognize their external fire has gotten completely out of control. The hype has turned into a massive PR crisis, investors or customers are super angry, and the whole structure is just burning way too hot. How does this ancient wisdom tell us to manage a modern crisis?
This brings us to a stage that is essentially a masterclass in crisis management. Because when a fire is raging out of control externally, the natural human instinct is to fight fire with fire.
Right.
To get super defensive, to argue back, to double down on the ego and try to prove that you are right.
Yeah, I mean, the modern playbook says hire incredibly expensive crisis managers, send out cease and desist letters, and put out a really aggressive press release.
But the strategy here warns that fighting fire with fire only creates a much larger inferno.
Makes sense.
The only actual solution to a fire that is burning totally out of control is to introduce its natural opposite, water.
Okay, but how do we introduce water into a corporate or personal crisis?
Through genuine vulnerability.
Vulnerability.
Yes. The specific imagery used here is a leader shedding true tears of regret and sorrow.
Wow.
You step completely down from the pedestal of your ego. You just admit you were in over your head, you admit you made severe mistakes, and you show actual human grief for the damage the fire has caused.
I have to push back on that a little bit because the modern internet is ruthless.
Oh, totally.
If a CEO sits down in front of a ring light today, sighs heavily and cries on a YouTube apology video, they don't get forgiven.
No, they do not.
They get turned into a meme. They get absolutely roasted in the comment section for being manipulative. So how does this ancient advice actually survive modern cynicism?
Well, it survives because the public is highly attuned to the difference between performative PR tears and true ego death.
Oh.
What you were describing, the scripted YouTube apology with the ring light and the fake sigh, is not water.
Right.
That's literally just a different type of fire. It was a calculated manipulation trying to control the narrative.
Yeah.
The vulnerability the I Ching describes requires a total surrender of the ego.
Total surrender.
Right. It is the realization that saving the community or the company or the relationship is vastly more important than saving your own face.
Wow.
When a leader demonstrates that level of genuine sorrow, it physically changes the chemistry of the room. True vulnerability cools the temperature of the public's anger. I mean, people struggle to sustain rage against someone who is truly, visibly broken and remorseful. It stops the spread of the crisis so the actual healing can begin.
Okay, so the genuine tears put out the raging fire. But, once the smoke clears, you still have a damaged building.
Yes, you do.
Crying doesn't actually fix the structural problems that caused the fire in the first place. At some point, somebody has to clean up the mess.
And that requires the final stage of the fire, the hard-edged conclusion.
Okay.
Because once you have cooled the panic with the vulnerability, you must pivot to decisive structural action.
So if I'm the leader, honestly, my instinct here is to clean house. If a department caused a massive crisis, I just want to fire the whole toxic team, salt the earth, and start completely over. Does this philosophy agree with that?
Not at all, actually.
Yeah.
The metaphor here shifts from tears of sorrow to a king going to war, and the instruction is highly, highly surgical. You execute the ringleader, but you explicitly pardon the followers.
Oh, you don't burn the whole village down.
Exactly the opposite. When a system has become toxic, or a bad fire has destroyed part of your forest, you absolutely must cut out the core toxic element. But you preserve the surrounding ecosystem.
I see.
You isolate the primary source of the dysfunction, like the manipulative manager or the corrupt vendor or whatever the specific flawed strategy was, and you remove it with absolute unforgiving resolve. but you show massive mercy to everyone who's just caught up in the momentum.
You literally see the difference between good and bad leadership in corporate turnarounds right here.
All the time?
Because a weak leader operating out of fear will just lay off an entire department because they can't pinpoint the actual problem. But a great leader is totally surgical. They fire the one deeply toxic vice president who engineered all the drama, and they publicly forgive the junior staff who are honestly just trying to survive under a bad boss.
Yeah.
You prune the diseased branch, but you ensure the healthy wood survives for the future.
Exactly. Because if you wipe everyone out, you have no fuel left to rebuild your fire tomorrow.
True.
By targeting only the root cause of the toxicity, you end the cycle of destruction and you restore order without losing your foundation.
It is such a remarkable progression to map out. I mean, we've gone from a clumsy, frantic spark searching desperately for a place to land to finding the steady, grounded log of a docile cow.
Yeah.
We've examined the danger of panicking when the sun finally sets on that log, the totally disastrous consequences of scaling up baseless hype, how to cool a raging public crisis with genuine vulnerability, and finally, how to surgically remove a toxic element to save the broader system.
It really represents a complete holistic life cycle of human energy and attachment.
It-
And the wisdom is that it applies to almost any endeavor. Launching a startup, managing a long-term marriage, or honestly just navigating the internal ambitions of your own career.
Absolutely. So, as we wrap up, here is the takeaway for you, listening right now. Take a hard look at the fires currently burning in your own life.
Ask yourself where you fall on this spectrum.
Right. Are you in that frantic first stage, clumsily searching for your staple platform? Are you comfortably burning on a steady base, doing the quiet, unglamorous work of compounding your value?
Or are you perhaps panicking because your current fuel is running out and you're complaining about the sunset instead of actually preparing for the night?
Yeah, and if you find yourself caught up in a wild, sudden flare-up of hype, you really need to ask yourself honestly, what is actually fueling this? Is there a solid log underneath, or are you just burning through your own oxygen?
It requires a lot of honesty to answer those questions, but identifying your fuel source is the only real way to ensure you don't burn out.
Exactly. Now, we spent this entire deep dive talking about managing your own fire, finding your own fuel, and controlling your own heat. But there is a flip side to all of this.
Oh, definitely.
What happens when your fire burns so intensely and leaves such a massive impact that it permanently alters the landscape around you? I mean, when your energy finally settles, when you've burned true and bright, what new forces have you naturally attracted into your orbit?
All right.
Because fire doesn't just consume, it transforms the ground beneath it, draws things in from the dark. And that is something to think about as you tend to your own flames this week.